Imagine driving down a city street and never really leaving the city. Not after 10 minutes, not after an hour. Not even after crossing multiple districts and passing countless skyscrapers. Imagine a road so long that it stretches nearly 93 miles, about 150 kilometers, through one of the fastest-growing regions on Earth. For most Americans, that distance is enough to travel between major cities. Yet in China, there is a single urban avenue that covers that entire span. Its name is Tianfu Avenue, and many urban planners consider it the longest urban central axis in the world. At first glance, it looks almost unreal. From satellite images, the avenue appears as a giant line cutting through the landscape with astonishing precision. The road stretches toward the horizon in a way that makes it seem more like a computer-generated rendering than a real piece of infrastructure. Yet every day, millions of people live, work, shop, commute, and build their lives along this remarkable corridor. What makes Tianfu Avenue so fascinating is not just its length. Roads exist everywhere. Highways cross continents. Interstate systems connect entire nations. But Tianfu Avenue is different because it was designed as the backbone of an entire urban vision. Instead of simply moving people from one place to another, it was built to shape the growth of a city, direct economic development, and create a blueprint for the future. This is not just the story of a road. It is the story of how modern China is attempting one of the most ambitious urban planning experiments ever undertaken. And by the end of this video, you may find yourself asking a surprising question. Is this what the future of cities actually looks like? For centuries, cities grew organically. A market would appear near a river. Businesses would cluster together. Roads would emerge naturally as people traveled between communities. Over time, towns became cities and cities became metropolitan regions. This is how many of America's greatest urban centers developed. New York evolved from a small colonial settlement. Chicago grew as a transportation hub. Los Angeles expanded through waves of migration and economic opportunity. Their growth was often messy, unpredictable, and driven by countless individual decisions. Tianfu Avenue represents almost the exact opposite approach. Here, planners started with a vision and built outward from it. They imagined a central axis that could guide growth for decades, perhaps even centuries. They envisioned technology districts, financial centers, residential neighborhoods, universities, parks, and transportation systems all connected by one massive corridor. The result is a roadway that challenges many traditional assumptions about how cities should develop. To understand why Tianfu Avenue exists, we first need to travel to one of China's most important cities, a place that has transformed itself from an ancient cultural center into a symbol of the country's modern ambitions. Long before Tianfu Avenue existed, Chengdu was already one of China's most significant cities. Located in Sichuan province in southwestern China, Chengdu has a history stretching back more than 2,000 years. Ancient Chinese scholars refer to this region as the land of abundance because of its fertile soil, favorable climate, and sophisticated irrigation systems. While many ancient civilizations struggled with droughts and food shortages, the people of this region developed engineering solutions that allowed agriculture to flourish for generations. As a result, Chengdu became a center of commerce, culture, and innovation, long before modern skyscrapers appeared on its skyline. Today, however, Chengdu is known for much more than its history. With a metropolitan population exceeding 20 million people, it has become one of China's most important economic engines. Global technology companies have established major operations here. Manufacturing industries have invested billions of dollars in facilities throughout the region. Universities attract students from across the country. International businesses see Chengdu as a gateway to Western China, one of the largest emerging markets on Earth. Over the last few decades, the city has experienced extraordinary growth. New residential districts appeared. Office towers rose into the skyline. Transportation networks expanded in every direction. But rapid growth brings enormous challenges. More people require more housing. More businesses require more infrastructure. More economic activity generates more traffic. Without careful planning, cities can quickly become victims of their own success. By the early 21st century, city leaders faced a critical question. How could Chengdu continue growing without repeating problems seen in many large metropolitan areas around the world? How could millions of new residents be accommodated while maintaining efficiency, sustainability, and quality of life? Their answer was ambitious. Instead of allowing development to spread randomly, they would organize growth around a single powerful concept, a north-south urban axis that could connect everything together. This axis would eventually become Tianfu Avenue, but at the time, few people could have imagined just how enormous the project would become. What began as an extension of an existing roadway gradually evolved into one of the most extraordinary urban corridors ever constructed. Over the years, the avenue expanded farther and farther, connecting districts, technology parks, financial centers, and entire new cities. The project became a physical representation of China's confidence in long-term planning and large-scale infrastructure development. Yet the most surprising part was still to come, because planners were not merely building a road, they were building an entirely new vision of urban life. To truly appreciate Tianfu Avenue, consider this comparison. The distance from Manhattan to Philadelphia is roughly similar to the length of this single urban corridor. Imagine a city street stretching that far. Imagine traffic lights, office towers, residential districts, parks, research centers, and commercial developments continuing mile after mile after mile. It sounds impossible, yet that is exactly what Tianfu Avenue has become. Driving along the avenue is an experience unlike anything most people have encountered. In some sections, the roadway expands into a vast transportation corridor with multiple express lanes, local traffic lanes, landscaped medians, bicycle paths, and pedestrian walkways. The scale feels more like a modern megacity than a conventional avenue. From the air, the road creates a visual axis that seems to slice through the landscape with geometric precision. Urban planners often speak about city structure, the way roads and public spaces organize development. Tianfu Avenue may be one of the most dramatic examples of this concept ever created. Nearly every major district along its route connects directly to the avenue. Technology hubs line its edges. Financial centers rise nearby. Universities and research facilities benefit from easy access. Residential neighborhoods spread outward from the corridor. In many ways, the avenue functions like a spine, supporting the growth of everything around it. What makes this even more remarkable is the timescale involved. Many infrastructure projects are designed to solve immediate problems. A bridge reduces congestion. A highway improves transportation. A subway line connects neighborhoods. Tianfu Avenue was designed with a much longer horizon in mind. Planners envisioned decades of future growth and built infrastructure capable of supporting it. In effect, they attempted to create a framework for a city that had not yet fully existed. The avenue became a roadmap for development itself. Businesses knew where future investment would occur. Developers understood where new districts would emerge. Transportation agencies could coordinate expansion plans. This level of integration is extraordinarily rare and helps explain why Tianfu Avenue attracts attention from urban planners around the world. It is not simply a road, it is an experiment in shaping the future before it arrives. As Tianfu Avenue continued expanding southward, something extraordinary began happening around it. Empty land that once contained scattered villages, farms, and undeveloped fields started transforming into entirely new urban districts. In many countries, city growth happens gradually. A few buildings appear. A neighborhood develops. Decades later, another district emerges nearby. But along Tianfu Avenue, development occurred at a speed and scale that astonished urban planners around the world. Entire sections of the city seemed to rise almost overnight. Massive office towers appeared where open fields had existed only a few years earlier. New residential communities were built to accommodate hundreds of thousands of residents. Shopping centers, hospitals, schools, universities, and research facilities followed. This transformation became especially visible in the Tianfu New area, a massive development zone designed to become one of China's most important centers for innovation, finance, and advanced technology. Officials envisioned a place where companies working on artificial intelligence, biotechnology, renewable energy, robotics, and advanced manufacturing could operate side by side. Instead of forcing businesses to spread across distant locations, the goal was to create an ecosystem where ideas, talent, and investment could move efficiently between organizations. The result was a district that looked less like a traditional city and more like a glimpse into the future. Glass towers reflected the sunlight. Wide boulevards stretched toward the horizon. Smart infrastructure monitored traffic and public services. 7 and 8 wide boulevards stretched toward the horizon. Smart infrastructure monitored traffic and public services. Parks and lakes were integrated into urban development rather than added later as an afterthought. To some observers, it felt like watching an entire city being designed on a computer and then brought into reality. Supporters argued that this approach demonstrated the power of long-term planning. Critics questioned whether growth could continue at such a pace. Yet regardless of perspective, nobody could deny the scale of what was occurring. Tianfu Avenue was no longer simply connecting parts of Chengdu. It was helping create entirely new ones. One of the most fascinating aspects of the development was how carefully the districts were organized. Financial institutions clustered near commercial centers. Research facilities appeared close to universities. Residential communities were positioned within reach of workplaces and public transportation. This arrangement was intended to reduce commuting times, improve efficiency, and encourage collaboration. In many modern cities, workers spend hours traveling between home and office. Planners hoped to minimize that problem by creating mixed-use districts where people could live, work, shop, and relax without constantly crossing the city. Whether this vision succeeds over the long term remains a topic of debate, but it demonstrates the ambitious thinking that shaped Tianfu Avenue from the beginning. The road was never intended to be just infrastructure. It was intended to become the organizing principle for an entirely new urban model. Traveling along Tianfu Avenue eventually brings visitors to one of the most astonishing structures on Earth, the New Century Global Center. For many Americans, the building's name means little. Yet in terms of floor area, it ranks among the largest buildings ever constructed. To understand its scale, imagine combining shopping malls, hotels, office complexes, entertainment venues, restaurants, conference centers, and recreational attractions into a single structure. Then make it large enough to contain entire city blocks beneath one roof. That is the New Century Global Center. When people first see photographs of the building, many assume the images have been digitally altered. The structure appears almost impossibly large. Its sweeping architecture dominates the skyline, and its interior spaces seem endless. Inside, visitors can find luxury hotels, retail stores, cinemas, offices, and even an artificial beach complete with waves. Massive digital screens create simulated sunsets regardless of the weather outside. The building functions almost like a self-contained city. For urban planners and architects, it represents a fascinating example of how modern China approaches large-scale development. Rather than constructing many separate facilities, developers combine numerous functions into a single megastructure designed to serve multiple purposes simultaneously. The building's location along Tianfu Avenue is no accident. It reflects the broader strategy of concentrating economic activity along the corridor. Major attractions encourage investment. Investment attracts businesses. Businesses create jobs. Jobs attract residents. Residents support additional services and infrastructure. In theory, each component reinforces the others, creating a cycle of growth. Standing inside the global center, it becomes easier to understand the immense confidence driving projects like Tianfu Avenue. These developments are not incremental improvements. They are bold statements about what planners believe cities can become. Whether viewed as visionary or excessive, they demonstrate a willingness to think on a scale rarely seen elsewhere in the world. Yet even the largest building on Earth is not the most surprising feature of Tianfu Avenue. That distinction may belong to something far less obvious, but potentially far more important: the effort to integrate nature directly into one of the largest urban development projects ever attempted. When most people hear about giant roads and rapidly expanding cities, they imagine endless concrete, traffic congestion, and disappearing green spaces. Historically, rapid urbanization often came at the expense of natural environments. Forests were cleared, wetlands disappeared, rivers became polluted, parks struggled to keep pace with development. Tianfu Avenue's planners claimed they wanted a different outcome. Their vision included not only skyscrapers and technology parks, but also one of the largest urban green networks in the world. This vision became reality through the Tianfu Greenway system. Stretching thousands of kilometers throughout the metropolitan region, the Greenway connects parks, lakes, rivers, recreational areas, and ecological corridors into a single network. Cyclists can travel long distances without leaving green spaces. Joggers can follow trails through landscaped environments that weave between urban districts. Families can enjoy parks located within easy reach of residential neighborhoods. From above, the Greenway appears like a giant web of green arteries surrounding and connecting the city. The goal is ambitious: to ensure that urban growth and environmental preservation occur simultaneously rather than in conflict. One of the most striking examples is Singlong Lake, a massive body of water surrounded by modern development. Instead of treating the lake as leftover space between buildings, planners made it a centerpiece of the surrounding district. Walking paths, public spaces, and recreational facilities encourage residents to interact with the environment. Office towers overlook the water. Research campuses sit nearby. Residential communities benefit from views and access to green space. The result is a landscape that feels surprisingly balanced despite its scale. Of course, creating green infrastructure is easier than maintaining it. Environmental experts continue debating the long-term effectiveness of such projects. Some argue that large parks and greenways genuinely improve urban sustainability. Others caution that environmental benefits depend on factors such as water management, biodiversity, and ongoing maintenance. Nevertheless, the effort itself is significant. At a time when many cities struggle to preserve open space, Tianfu Avenue's planners attempted to make nature a central component of development, rather than a secondary consideration. As impressive as the parks and lakes may be, they are only one part of a broader vision. Because hidden beneath the surface of Tianfu Avenue lies another ambitious goal: creating one of the world's smartest urban corridors. For much of history, roads were passive infrastructure. They allowed people and goods to move from one location to another, but they did little else. Tianfu Avenue represents a very different philosophy. Here, the roadway is increasingly integrated into a broader network of digital technologies designed to improve efficiency, safety, and urban management. Traffic sensors monitor vehicle flow. Intelligent systems analyze congestion patterns. Communication networks support data transmission between public services. Smart lighting adjusts to changing conditions. Public transportation systems coordinate with broader mobility networks. In some districts, planners envision autonomous vehicles eventually operating alongside traditional transportation. The avenue serves as a testing ground for many of these innovations because its scale and strategic importance make it an ideal environment for experimentation. The broader goal is often described as building a smart city. While the term means different things to different people, it generally refers to the use of technology and data to improve urban operations. Imagine traffic signals that adapt in real time to changing conditions. Imagine public transportation routes optimized using live data. Imagine energy systems that reduce waste while maintaining reliability. These concepts are becoming increasingly common around the world, but Tianfu Avenue offers a unique opportunity to implement them across an entire urban corridor rather than within isolated districts. Supporters believe such technologies could make cities more efficient and sustainable. Critics raise concerns about privacy, surveillance, and dependence on complex digital systems. Both perspectives highlight important questions that societies everywhere will need to address as urban areas become increasingly connected. What is clear, however, is that Tianfu Avenue is not merely a transportation project. It is also a laboratory for ideas that may shape the future of urban living, and perhaps that is why the avenue continues attracting global attention. It forces us to ask fundamental questions about how cities should grow, how technology should be used, and what kind of urban environments future generations will inherit. Imagine starting your journey early in the morning, as the sun rises over Chengdu. At first, the surroundings feel familiar. Dense urban neighborhoods, busy intersections, apartment towers, restaurants, and office buildings line the roadway. Thousands of commuters begin their day. Buses glide through dedicated lanes. Cyclists move along carefully planned paths. Pedestrians stream toward subway stations. It looks like any major modern city. But as you continue driving south along Tianfu Avenue, something unusual happens. The city doesn't end. In most places, leaving downtown means gradually entering suburbs, then rural areas, and eventually open countryside. Along Tianfu Avenue, the transition is very different. Instead of one city center giving way to distant development, urban districts seem to flow continuously into one another. Financial centers transition into technology parks. Technology parks transition into residential communities. Residential communities blend into commercial districts. Every few miles, the skyline changes again. New clusters of towers appear on the horizon. Fresh construction projects emerge. Parks and lakes interrupt the urban landscape before another district rises ahead. For travelers, the experience can feel almost surreal. The avenue creates a sense that the city is constantly reinventing itself as you move through it. One moment you are surrounded by corporate headquarters. Minutes later, you are passing universities and research campuses. Soon after, enormous parks and waterfront developments dominate the scenery. Then another skyline appears. Then another. Then another. The sheer scale of the corridor becomes difficult to comprehend because there are few comparable examples anywhere else in the world. At night, the transformation is even more dramatic. Towering skyscrapers illuminate the skyline with thousands of lights. Bridges glow with colorful displays. Digital screens cover building facades. Reflections shimmer across lakes and waterways. The avenue becomes a ribbon of light stretching across the metropolitan region. Drone footage captured after dark often resembles scenes from science fiction films. To some viewers, it looks like a city from the future. To others, it demonstrates how rapidly urban development can reshape an entire landscape. Either way, the drive reveals something important. Tianfu Avenue is not merely a road connecting places. It is a journey through one of the most ambitious urban experiments of the modern era. While visitors often focus on the avenue's impressive appearance, its true significance may be economic. Tianfu Avenue was designed not only to move people, but also to concentrate investment, innovation, and opportunity. In many ways, it functions as an economic spine for the broader region. Along its route are technology companies, financial institutions, manufacturing centers, research facilities, universities, startups, and multinational corporations. Together, these organizations form an interconnected ecosystem intended to drive long-term growth. The logic behind this strategy is relatively simple. When businesses operate near one another, ideas spread more easily. Employees can collaborate across industries. Universities can work directly with private companies. Investors can access emerging technologies. Entrepreneurs can find talent more efficiently. By creating a corridor where these interactions occur naturally, planners hope to accelerate innovation and economic development. This approach has become increasingly important as China seeks to move beyond traditional manufacturing and become a global leader in advanced industries. Artificial intelligence, biotechnology, robotics, renewable energy, and high-tech manufacturing all play major roles in the region's future plans. Many of these industries require highly educated workers, advanced infrastructure, and strong connections between research and business. Tianfu Avenue provides the physical framework that supports those relationships. The economic impact extends beyond large corporations. Small businesses benefit from increased activity. Restaurants, retail stores, service providers, and local entrepreneurs gain access to growing customer bases. Construction projects create jobs. Infrastructure improvements attract additional investment. Over time, the corridor generates economic momentum that can influence the entire province. Of course, economic development on this scale also carries risks. Growth projections may not always materialize. Some developments may struggle to attract tenants. Market conditions can change unexpectedly. Critics argue that large-scale planning sometimes overestimates future demand. Supporters counter that long-term infrastructure must anticipate growth rather than simply react to it. Regardless of which perspective proves correct, Tianfu Avenue demonstrates how transportation infrastructure can become a central tool for shaping economic development rather than merely supporting it. No project of this size escapes criticism. In fact, some of the most interesting conversations surrounding Tianfu Avenue involve the debates it has inspired among economists, urban planners, architects, and residents. Supporters view the avenue as a masterpiece of long-term planning. They argue that modern cities face enormous challenges, including population growth, transportation demands, environmental concerns, and economic competition. Addressing these challenges requires ambitious solutions. From this perspective, Tianfu Avenue represents proactive planning rather than reactive development. Instead of waiting for congestion, overcrowding, and infrastructure shortages to emerge, planners built capacity in advance. They created space for future growth. They integrated transportation with economic development. They invested in green spaces alongside urban expansion. To supporters, these decisions demonstrate strategic thinking rarely seen in modern city building. Critics, however, raise important questions. They ask whether such large-scale development can remain sustainable over the long term. They wonder whether some districts were built faster than demand justified. They question whether centralized planning can accurately predict future economic trends. Some observers point to underutilized areas during certain stages of development and argue that resources could have been allocated differently. Others express concerns about environmental impacts, maintenance costs, and the challenges of managing such a vast urban corridor. Interestingly, both sides often agree on one point: Tianfu Avenue is extraordinary. The disagreement centers not on whether the project is remarkable, but on what lessons should be drawn from it. Should other cities attempt similar strategies? Can large-scale planning produce better outcomes than organic growth? Is the future of urban development more centralized or more decentralized? These questions extend far beyond Chengdu. They touch on fundamental issues facing cities around the world. Perhaps the most important lesson is that urban development is never purely technical. Roads, buildings, parks, and transportation systems reflect values and priorities. They reveal how societies imagine their future. Tianfu Avenue tells us that at least some planners believe the future can be designed, organized, and guided through long-term vision. Whether history ultimately proves them right remains to be seen. As the world moves deeper into the 21st century, cities everywhere face similar pressures. Populations continue growing. Technology continues evolving. Climate concerns influence development decisions. Transportation systems require modernization. Housing demand remains high. The question is not whether cities will change. The question is how they will change. Tianfu Avenue offers one possible answer. It suggests that future cities may be organized around integrated corridors that combine transportation, economic development, environmental planning, and digital infrastructure. Instead of treating these elements separately, planners may increasingly view them as interconnected systems. Roads become economic engines. Parks become environmental infrastructure. Technology networks become public utilities. Urban development becomes a coordinated effort rather than a collection of isolated projects. Whether this model can be replicated elsewhere depends on many factors. Different countries have different political systems, economic conditions, geographic constraints, and cultural expectations. What works in Chengdu may not work in Los Angeles, Chicago, London, or Mumbai. Yet the underlying ideas continue attracting attention because they address challenges faced by cities across the globe. For urban planners, Tianfu Avenue serves as a fascinating case study. For engineers, it demonstrates what is possible when infrastructure is designed at an unprecedented scale. For economists, it provides insight into how transportation can influence regional development. For ordinary citizens, it raises a simple but powerful question: what kind of cities do we want to build for future generations? As the sun sets over Chengdu, Tianfu Avenue continues stretching toward the horizon, carrying millions of people through one of the most ambitious urban landscapes ever created. It is a road, a transportation corridor, an economic engine, a technological experiment, a greenway, a vision of the future, and perhaps most importantly, it is a reminder of humanity's extraordinary ability to reshape the world around us. Few infrastructure projects capture the imagination quite like this one. Nearly 93 miles long, lined with skyscrapers, parks, research centers, financial districts, lakes, and entire new communities, Tianfu Avenue challenges conventional ideas about what a city can be. To some, it represents the future. To others, it serves as a cautionary tale about the risks of thinking too big. But regardless of where you stand, one thing is impossible to deny. Tianfu Avenue is not just one of the longest urban avenues on Earth. It is one of the boldest urban experiments of the 21st century, and its story is still being written.